The village of Hollowmoor lived in fear. It huddled under a perpetual shadow, not of mountains nor of trees, but of a curse. Every 13 years, under the blood moon, the Shadow Stag would rise. Antlers like gnarled branches, eyes burning with spectral fire. It claimed a life for the earth, a sacrifice to keep the balance. The villagers knew the price of survival. They knew the whispers that rustled through the trees. They knew the legend, but knowing changed nothing. Fear was a current, running swift and deep through their veins. It was in their blood, passed down through generations. They were trapped. The air grew thick with dread as the blood moon approached. Mothers clutched their children closer. Fathers sharpened their tools, useless against the spectral beast. The stag would come, it always did, and they would wait, and pray, and fear. Elara was different. She was not afraid. She was born with a spirit that resonated with the wild, a heart that beat in time with the rhythm of the forest. Not in the same way as others. While the villagers feared the unknown shadows and the eerie sounds of the woods, Elara found comfort in them. The forest, her home, held no terror for her. It was a place of wonder and discovery, a living, breathing entity that welcomed her with open arms. She knew its secrets, its whispers, its heartbeat. Every rustle of leaves, every creak of branches spoke to her in a language only she could understand. Daughter of the village herbalist, Elara walked with nature. She had learned the ancient ways of healing from her mother, who was revered for her knowledge of plants and their medicinal properties. She spoke the language of herbs and roots. Each plant had a story, a purpose, and Elara knew them all by heart, understood the healing power of the earth. She could create remedies that could cure ailments and soothe pains, a gift that set her apart from the rest. Elara was drawn to the woods, not repelled. The deeper she ventured, the more she felt at home, surrounded by the towering trees and the symphony of nature. She would lose herself amongst the ancient trees. Their age-old wisdom and strength were a source of inspiration and solace for her. Their roots, gnarled and deep, spoke to her. They told tales of times long past, of the cycles of life and death that the forest had witnessed. The forest was her sanctuary, not her prison. It was a place where she could be herself, free from the judgments and fears of the villagers. She would sit for hours, listening, learning. The forest was her teacher, and she its devoted student. The woods held secrets, ancient and powerful. Secrets that were passed down through the whispers of the wind and the rustling of leaves. The villagers saw her as strange, an outsider. They could not understand her bond with the forest, and it made them uneasy. They whispered about her behind cupped hands. Stories of her strange abilities and her solitary walks in the woods spread like wildfire. Her connection to the forest unsettled them. They feared what they could not understand, and Elara was a mystery they could not unravel. But Elara paid them no mind. She knew that her path was different, and she embraced it with confidence and grace. She had a bond with the woods that they could never comprehend, a kinship that went beyond mere understanding, a connection that was as old as the trees themselves. She could feel the forest's fear now. The once comforting whispers had turned into anxious murmurs, and the trees seemed to shiver with unease. The approaching blood moon cast a long, unsettling shadow. It was a harbinger of change, a sign that something was coming. The trees whispered of the stag's return, an ancient creature of legend whose presence signaled a time of great upheaval. Elara felt a knot of unease in her stomach, not fear, but worry. She knew that the forest was trying to tell her something important. Something was different this time. She could feel it. The air was thick with anticipation, and Elara knew that she had to be ready for whatever was coming. The blood moon hung heavy in the sky, casting an ominous glow that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. It bathed Hollowmoor in an eerie, crimson light, transforming the familiar village into a landscape of shadows and dread. Silence descended, thick and suffocating, as if the very air was holding its breath in anticipation of the horrors to come. The villagers huddled inside their homes, fear a tangible presence. They whispered prayers and clutched talismans, hoping for protection. Then, the screams began. Blood-curdling, filled with raw terror, the screams echoed through the night, a chilling symphony of despair. The Shadow Stag had returned, its presence a dark legend come to life. Its eyes, burning embers in the night, cut through the darkness with an intensity that seemed to pierce the soul. It moved like smoke, its form shifting and ethereal, antlers scraping against the night sky. Panic seized the village. Doors bolted, prayers whispered, hearts raced. The beast had made its choice, its gaze locking onto its prey with a predatory focus. When morning came, the village was shrouded in a heavy silence, the weight of the night's terror still lingering in the air. The blood moon was gone, replaced by a pale, indifferent sun that offered no comfort, only a stark reminder of the night's events. The villagers emerged from their homes, fear etched on their faces, their eyes scanning the surroundings for signs of the horror that had visited them. They gathered in the square, whispering in hushed tones. One was missing. Elara's brother, Liam. Despair settled over them like a shroud. It choked Elara, threatened to consume her, the realization that her brother was gone, taken by the stag, a wound that cut deep. Liam, gone, taken by the stag. The words echoed in her mind, a relentless reminder of her loss. Rage, hot and fierce, pulsed through her veins, igniting a fire that burned away the despair. This time, it was personal. The stag had taken someone she loved, and she would not let it go unchallenged. This time, she would not simply wait in fear. She would prepare, gather her strength, and face the darkness head-on. This time, she would fight. With determination etched on her face and a weapon in hand, Elara stood ready to confront the Shadow Stag, to reclaim what was taken, and to end the terror that had gripped Hollowmoor. Elara retreated to her sanctuary, the heart of the woods. She needed answers. The trees whispered, their voices mournful, tinged with an ancient sorrow. They spoke of Liam, his life force fading, consumed by the stag. But there was something else. A whisper, faint and desperate. Hope. Deep within her heart, Elara felt a pull, a memory, surfacing from the depths of her childhood. Her grandmother, her voice a raspy whisper, telling her stories. Legends, myths, one story in particular, the ritual, a forbidden ritual, a way to break the curse, to banish the Shadow Stag. It was a dangerous gamble, a one-way ticket into the Shadow Realm, the source of the stag's power. Success meant freedom for Hollowmoor. Failure. Elara pushed the thought away. Failure was not an option, not when Liam's life hung in the balance. Guided by instinct and the whispers of the forest, Elara ventured deep into the woods. She moved with a newfound purpose, her grief a burning ember in her chest. The air grew colder, the trees more gnarled and twisted. The boundary between worlds was weakening. She reached a clearing, bathed in an otherworldly light. In the center stood an ancient tree, its branches reaching towards the sky like skeletal fingers. Runes, glowing faintly, were carved into its trunk. The gateway. Elara could feel the pull of the Shadow Realm, a siren song of darkness and danger. Taking a deep breath, Elara prepared herself. The ritual was ancient, its steps etched into her very being. She could feel the magic thrumming beneath her fingertips. It called to her, a dangerous allure. Fear threatened to consume her, but Elara pushed it down. Liam needed her. Hollowmoor needed her. With a whispered prayer and a heart full of trepidation, Elara began the ritual. The world dissolved around Elara, the familiar sights and sounds of her home fading into a blur of colors and shapes. She felt a strange sensation, as if she were being pulled through a tunnel of light and shadow, her body weightless and her mind adrift. She was pulled through the veil into a realm of shadows and whispers, a place where the air seemed to hum with an eerie energy. The portal closed behind her with a soft, almost mournful sigh, leaving her standing alone in this strange new world. The air was thick and heavy, filled with the stench of decay and the feeling of watchful eyes. Every breath she took was a struggle, the oppressive atmosphere pressing down on her like a physical weight. She could hear the faint rustling of leaves and the distant calls of unknown creatures, adding to the sense of unease that gripped her heart. The Shadow Realm was a twisted reflection of her own world, a dark and distorted mirror image that seemed to mock the reality she knew. The trees were gnarled and twisted, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, and the ground was covered in a thick layer of blackened leaves and rotting vegetation. Familiar, yet alien. Wrong. The landscape was unsettling, a nightmarish version of the forests she had once roamed freely. It was as if the very essence of the place was designed to unsettle and disorient her, to make her question her own sanity. Creatures of nightmare stalked her path, their eyes glowing with a malevolent light. They moved silently through the shadows, their forms shifting and changing as they watched her with predatory intent. She could feel their presence, a constant reminder of the danger that lurked in every corner of this dark realm. They were things born of darkness and fear, their forms shifting and swirling like smoke. Each one was a manifestation of the deepest, most primal fears that haunted the human mind, and they seemed to take pleasure in the terror they inspired. Elara pressed on, her resolve hardening with every step. She knew that she could not afford to falter, not when so much was at stake. Her determination was a beacon of light in the darkness, guiding her forward even when the path seemed impossible to navigate. The forest had prepared her for this. Every lesson she had learned, every challenge she had faced, had been leading up to this moment. She drew strength from the memories of her training, the countless hours spent honing her skills and building her resilience. It had armed her with knowledge, with courage. She would not falter. Her sword felt like an extension of her own arm, a tool of both defense and defiance. She was ready to face whatever this realm threw at her. Each step forward took her deeper into the heart of the Shadow Realm, the darkness growing thicker and more oppressive with every passing moment. She could feel the weight of the shadows pressing in on her, but she refused to let it slow her down. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper. The chill seeped into her bones, but she welcomed it as a reminder of the reality of her mission. She was not here by accident. She had a purpose, a goal that she was determined to achieve. She could feel the stag's presence, a looming darkness that threatened to consume her. It was a malevolent force, a creature of pure shadow and malice, and she knew that facing it would be the ultimate test of her strength and resolve. But beneath the fear, Elara felt a glimmer of hope. It was a small, fragile thing, but it burned brightly within her, a reminder that even in the darkest of places, there was always a chance for light to break through. She was on the right path. Every instinct told her so, and she trusted those instincts implicitly. They had guided her this far, and she knew they would not lead her astray now. The whispers of the forest guided her, leading her ever closer to her goal. They were like a soft, comforting presence, a reminder that she was not truly alone in this dark and dangerous place. The fate of Hollowmoor, the life of her brother, rested on her shoulders. It was a heavy burden, but one she bore with pride and determination. She would not let them down. Elara would face the stag. She would confront the darkness head-on, with all the strength and courage she could muster. She would face her fear. It was the only way to overcome it, to prove to herself and to the world that she was capable of greatness. And she would not yield. No matter what challenges lay ahead, no matter how daunting the path, she would stand firm and see her mission through to the end.